Hi everyone, it's Genevieve from Kangaroo Time. Thank you so much for watching the recording of our webinar right now. At Kangaroo Time, we create software for childcare centers. We're an all-in-one solution that helps centers grow their business, connect with their families, and effectively manage their staff members. Our software will help you automate your entire business, including payments, billing, check-in and check-out for children, keeping track of staff hours. We also do classroom automation, and this gives your teacher prompts while they're in the classroom to update parents on feedings, diaper changes, and developmental milestones. And it really hardwires the parents into the early education experience, and they get a beautiful feed of content right on their smartphones. So if you're looking for billing and a payment solution, a parent app, or staff scheduling, contact Kangaroo Time today. Thanks so much and enjoy the webinar.
Hey everybody, welcome. We'll get started in just a moment. We are here today with an awesome roundtable that I'm super fired up about. It's always me and the ladies, some way, somehow. And guys, I grew up I have 13 sisters, and some of them are probably watching this on replay. So what's up, girls? Hey sisters, especially my sister Tracy. But yeah, it's been my whole life. And then I decided to go into business, building software in a space that has a high prevalence of awesome female power entrepreneurs. And so, yeah, I think my life has been aligned to interface with strong, powerful women. And I'm really excited about this roundtable. But before I go into that, a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't joined or subscribed to the Kangaroo Time YouTube channel, please do. And look at this, Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021 by Miss Audra Wilson, which was great. I rewatched it the other day. But look at this, it only has 34 views. This is the best data that you can get on this topic. We've been really fortunate. When the pandemic started, we decided to kind of like shut down our relentless customer acquisition and top of the funnel and marketing investments. And Genevieve actually decided, Scott, let's do webinars. Let's do as many webinars as we can. Let's focus on advocacy for our customers and our potential customers, and who cares about what we're selling here over the next year, because nobody's buying anything. We're all just trying to stay alive. So our stewardship was just to bring as much content as we could. And we've had an embarrassment of wealth when it's come to great panelists like you all. But please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will not hit you over the head with any sort of advertisement. We just love producing the content, and it's awesome. Also, if you haven't joined KT Childcare Connect, this is our group where we share digital insights. We share data about the early education space. When we were in the heart of COVID, or in the heart of the pandemic, nobody had answers. Everybody was looking for just orientation around what was being said in the mainstream media, and what other owners and directors were saying. And a lot of it was proximal. This is a place where you can join. We love to have conversations. We like to share insights here, data. About once a quarter, we've been sharing our average attendance, average revenue per customer, and baselining, or comparing that against the normal days pre-February 2020. So there's a great wealth of resources here too. So guys, please reach out to us if we can help you with anything operational inside your childcare center. But I'm glad to have each and every one of you here. I think now's a great time. Let's just get started. We have 3 Black ECE entrepreneurs here with us today, and we're going to dive into their backgrounds. how they got started, the challenges they encountered along the way, and how they continue to stay motivated. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm thrilled to be able to chat with fellow entrepreneurs. You will see me geek out today like no other. So just get ready. Just get ready. That's what I do. We wanted to highlight Black entrepreneurs this month, not only because it's Black History Month, but because the childcare industry is so incredibly diverse. We are 14.5% Black, which is a higher representation than the US as a whole. And I think there's some interesting topics there with gender parity, also income inequality. I think there's really interesting topics there. And we hope that highlighting Black entrepreneurs, we can inspire Black entrepreneurs to start their businesses, to support childcare and early education sector. We've all heard that this sector, the world of childcare, is one of those that has deserts and that's systemically underserved. According to the Center for American Progress, 44.3% of Black population in the US live in one of those childcare deserts. We know what a challenge childcare deserts are for our workforce and how desperately we all need childcare entrepreneurs. One of the big topics that came out as the pandemic started to hit and as childcare centers started to shut down was the number of spots in the underserved American childcare market that were at risk and could disappear. It was something like 4 to 5 million spots. So everything we do as Kangaroo Time, as our panel, I think we need to be thinking globally and long tail about addressing the deltas that we have from a delivery perspective and providing quality childcare. It's so critical that right now we all dig in and advocate for those of you who are looking to live a life of service and work in the world of early education. So thanks for having us, Dani, Audra, and Latrice. Let's get started. All of you know most of you know what Kangaroo Time is. We're a software company. We focus on helping childcare businesses run their operations efficiently, tools for the classroom for teachers, parent engagement, and our newest feature is staff scheduling. We've seen so many of you that are in this, that are straddling this world of trying to keep the doors open and keep a very lean and mean operation. But then, all of a sudden enrollment's starting to come back and you need to assign staff. We've got a product that can help you do that. And then our revenue cycle management products are the best. But that's enough. That's enough from me pitching. I'm excited to introduce our panelists for this discussion. First of all, I'd like to introduce Dani Christine. Dani is the owner of 2 childcare centers in Long Island, and she is a consultant at childcaresites.com. Dani has been in the childcare industry for over a decade. She opened her first childcare businesses in 2014, years of operating a multi-site childcare business and sharing her tips and techniques with providers around the world on her digital platform, youtube.com/Dani Christine. It's DANI, Christine, CHRISTINE. Led Dani to expand her brand in 2019 and launch her consulting agency called Dani Christine Inc. Dani provides support for aspiring and new childcare business owners. She uses the childcaresites.com platform to offer helpful resources for childcare professionals. Audra Wilson Russell, I mentioned her earlier. She has, Audra, you have two webinars you've done for us, right? Or is it, this is your third one, or is this the fourth?
I feel like it's the fourth.
We are volume shooters here, Audra. Audra is the owner of WATS CPA, a virtual accounting firm that offers CFO advisory, outsource accounting, and tax solutions primarily to childcare centers. She's a licensed CPA in the state of Florida. She's a graduate of Florida State University. What is it? I'm terrible. Yeah, okay. The tomahawk chop. That's what it is. Yeah. She has 15 years of experience in accounting and taxation. She enjoys working with childcare providers, putting an emphasis on reaching their financial goals. Audra, I think you'll agree with me. Childcare providers are the gold of the earth. They're the best people on the planet.
Absolutely.
Audra brings with her a myriad of acronyms after her. So FICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, AICPA. She's extremely qualified and again has a heart for childcare owners. And then finally, Latrice Crawford. Latrice has been in the childcare industry for 14 years. She's the current owner of Kidsville Learning Academy, a multi-million-dollar facility in Rosenberg, Texas. Latrice, is that Houston? That's Houston area, right?
Correct.
All right, yeah. I grew up in Dallas, so hello to a fellow Texan. Over the years, she's gained a wealth of knowledge in this industry that will help any aspiring childcare center owner or help current owners scale their businesses to new heights. During the pandemic, Latrice started her childcare consulting business, the Childcare, Chic. I love that because she wanted to help others get into the childcare industry. And the way I see this, guys, is doing what you're doing as consultants or adding consulting services. You're a part of the solution, right? You're really passionate about helping other people enter a very underserved opportunity, and we'll talk about that opportunity. Latrice also loves marketing and branding, and during the pandemic, many childcare owners were struggling with how to market and get new clients into their centers, so she wanted to help. She has several resources available on her website. Genevieve will put the web address, which is thechildcarechick.com, in the chat. Thanks, Genevieve. With those beautiful, verbose, but very, very underwhelming introductions, because of the messenger, please shoot the messenger. I would like to get started. So I know each of you have a unique story about why you got started, but let's start with Latrice. Tell me about how you got started. You didn't start in early education, but you saw a need. Tell us about that.
So I'm Latrice. And so for me, my story is a lot different from most of the early childhood educators and owners that I speak with. I do not, now I have a lot of experience, but I did not have a background in early childhood education. I was really just a mom, not being able to find what I was looking for in a program when I was moving into a new community. And that's literally how I got started. I was purchasing a home in a new community, looking around for my son, who's now 21, but I was looking for a place to take him. And I didn't see like anything that had any programs, any curriculums that I wanted to leave. They were no technology, they were dark, they were dull, they were just not well kept. I just really didn't see anything that I wanted to send my son to, and I just kind of went home, told my husband about it. And I do have, I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and then I have a master's degree in business administration, but I still thought I would stay in the criminal justice side of business. But I just said, I think I can do this. What if I opened a center that brought the things that I would like to see in a center to our community, because it's growing. I mean, it's growing very rapidly because it was in the suburbs. Now it's became part of the city. And my husband was like, if you want to do it, let's do it. And literally that's what I did. Now, it was not easy. And I think one of the questions, we'll talk about that, didn't have a lot of support, didn't have no clue what I was doing. And I just felt my way through it, made a lot of mistakes over the years and getting started. But 14 years later, it's been the best decision, the best thing that's ever happened to me. Best thing I could have done for my family, my children, the people in my community. I've been able to employ so many people and impact so many lives in my community. And for me, that's what it's all about. When those children come back to me, invite me to their graduation that I kept when they were little, and tell me how much they appreciated me. And I have some that even bring their children who they used to be in my center. Now their children are in my center. So it just gives me great joy. And I am glad that God kind of changed my story and my path and veered me this way. And that's why I like to share my story and help other people get in this industry. It's very rewarding.
Latrice, there's so much there with regard to the mission and the contribution that an early education school, the stories that it creates, right? Like, I think we all try to fight off the crow's feet and the markers of age, but getting an invite to somebody that was a 4-year-old yesterday and 14 years later to their high school graduation. I don't care who you are. It's the great equalizer. You just feel old. You look great though. You're looking good.
All the time. I tell the kids that they come bring, I'm like, oh my God, you're graduated. I feel so old. If I run into them in the store and they're with their girlfriends or boyfriends or kids, it's like, oh my God, have I really got this old? So,
well, I think we can all agree that the reward there is that and we all know the investment in those first 5 years, what you guys are doing at your schools to build bodies, souls, and minds, even though you might not get a 100% hit rate on the number of invites you get to high school graduations, you guys are all such a big part of that. And that's such a that's so inspiring to think about each day. Dani, you opened up a second center in the middle of a pandemic. What are you thinking? What do you know? So most people wouldn't have done that, but you have been very successful. Can you kind of give us some context there in that story?
Yeah, sure. It was always our intention to expand. I am someone that really doesn't have a goal with like how many centers specifically I want to open in the future. Maybe I should, maybe that will help me like get on track. But just whatever opportunities come my way, I'm always into like researching them and figuring out whether or not it will be right for us as a company. Both of my centers now are located in Long Island, New York, in Nassau County. And what happened during a couple months ago, over the summer pretty much, is we recognized that there were a lot of programs that had closed their doors in the springtime, what they thought or planned to be temporary for only a couple of weeks, and we're still closed several months later. So my dad is my partner in my childcare businesses. We own it together, and we were talking about like what opportunities might exist now, since we have already been trying to find good ones. We had already been trying to find a good opportunity for the past year or so. We decided to look around and see if there were programs that were still closed due to the pandemic. And even if they weren't being advertised as for sale or for lease, or even advertising that they're closed or not reopening, we reached out. So I sent out notices and letters to programs that we were interested in that I saw were still closed, and asked if the owner would be willing to talk about selling or leasing their space. And fortunately, within a couple of days, we got an answer from the person that is now our landlord at our second location. He owned the business and the building and was very much looking to get rid of the business. He wasn't interested in doing it anymore, especially because they were struggling even prior to COVID. So that was an opportunity that was a win-win situation for both us, myself and my father as business owners, as well as our landlord who was looking to get out of it, and this is now a rental property for him. So
I
go
hear
ahead.
about that opportunity a lot. In fact,
Right.
I've met Audra in a couple of different shows, but where we really connected was at the Hinge Brokers conference, and my eyes were really opened at the number of opportunities out there for M&A. Dani, just like you said, there are so many folks that maybe don't have the passion to have a childcare business, but it's okay for them to still own the real estate and let a passionate entrepreneur like yourself that can
Right.
create culture. And we all know that the success of our schools is all about building culture, and the business metrics and the unit metrics within the business, the finances, which I'll ask Audra about. It's not really that important, if the culture is there, you have the right people. A failing proximity can become a success. That's awesome, and congrats on the second center. We need to do an entire session on M&A, so and finding centers like you did. So I could talk about this for hours. But Audra, of all the industries that you could have served, in all honesty, there are many more profitable segments or verticals. You decided on childcare providers. What was the catalyst there?
Okay, so starting out, I will say that I was kind of like the jack of all trades, right? Taking on any and every client that I could. So looking to generate revenues, more clients in the door, that kind of thing. So in doing so, it pretty much stretched me thin with learning about the different industries and the specific industries for specific types of clients and things like that. So I did an inventory of my clients and the ones that I enjoy working with, and then also looking at their business models to see which ones really impacted the community the greatest. And of course, there's no argument about the childcare industry and the impact that it has on the community. So I really love the clients that I work with in that space and the type of work that they do. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me. And then also with my background in youth activities, as a youth myself, I used to participate in like my church's drama ministry, the choir, the praise dance team, Sunday school, all of that stuff. And then once I got a little bit older, I started to volunteer myself as like a youth cheerleading coach, mentoring for my sororities, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, our Delta Gyms and Delta Academy mentorship program. So it just made sense that the youth and early childhood education is kind of like the area that has that kind of sparked my attention more so than the other industries of clients. So at that point, and it was probably about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, at that point is when I decided to focus the majority of my concentration for the business on the early childhood education industry.
Audra, I have an anecdote here. My first startup was in healthcare, and I worked, my customer were like these high-powered surgeons, and they were like they were tough audience. I have a famous story where I had a doctor that slammed a computer down in the middle of a procedure, and one of the keys flew off, and we thought went into the patient's habitus, like the patient,
Wow.
kind of like the Jujubee story or the Junior Mint story on Seinfeld, where I think Kramer accidentally dropped. It was that ridiculous.
Wow, that's crazy.
And like some tough interactions. And then I started building software for this space. And I'd never gotten so many hugs from my customers in my life. This was just like, I determined that ECE owners are the gold of the earth. They are the best. You all are the best customers ever. It's an amazing experience. Guys, so I want to talk about race and ECE, and this is something that, as a white guy with a ton of privilege and who's gone through life with just no limits essentially, and I recognize that. Many of you know my story. I adopted my youngest brother, who's Black, and raised him from about 6 years old on. And that perspective, that aperture to see his life as we both went through it together, like even walking into a store in Texas, in Dallas, Texas, with him, and getting the hey, hello, how are you doing? And then he's right behind me to the what are you doing in here? Some of the social interactions, being a dad that had to negotiate through adolescence, and some really interesting times. I told Genevieve, like, I don't know if I have the context to lead this conversation, so bear with me. Give me some grace here, but I think we have a huge responsibility for people of color to provide infrastructure, and one of those areas is in early education. We have got to go the extra mile and do some momentous things to provide for those that are underserved. So ECE is a sector, it's predominantly female, it's 14.5% Black. Audra, I'll start with you. What do you think can be done to bring more Black entrepreneurs into our industry?
Well, I think it starts with the education, like letting them know what opportunities are available in this industry. So some may not be familiar with the Child Care Development Block grants and how that can help you with funding for your program, to service the community that we live in, that we've known forever, that we grow up, we live, work, and play in. And then also it gives you like a sense of community. So I talked about all those different youth activities, and I'm from a small town here in South Florida, Delray Beach, Florida, where pretty much everybody knows everybody. And it is a sense of community. So just, getting involved from that aspect, maybe even from a volunteer standpoint, if there are those types of opportunities. And then I will also encourage other entrepreneurs to start in like the legal space, financial services like insurance or marketing, to see if they can tailor some of their services that's specific to the childcare industry.
I love it. Dani, any thoughts from you on that question?
Yeah, I think when it comes to seeing more Black entrepreneurs in childcare, I would say that representation matters. If we have other Black leaders within the industry to look up to, it will help us to recognize that these opportunities are available to us. In previous programs that I've worked in before starting my own, I started off as a home daycare provider in 2014. Before I did that, I worked in another center, and that representation wasn't there. And that might be because of the community that I was in. I was in an area that I went to high school in, and it is predominantly white, but it just it wasn't there for me when I was growing up. And I also didn't feel like I was encouraged to progress. As a matter of fact, fun fact, when I left to start my own home daycare in towns and towns away, actually in a different city, my old boss actually tried to take legal action against me and sued me for starting my own home daycare program. So that's how I started this journey. And one thing that I ask now, any employee that is coming on with me during the interview process or their onboarding process, I ask them about what their goals are within this industry. And if many of them, I let them know that they can be comfortable to tell me exactly what it is, whether it's that they want to start their own, or even if this isn't a long-term goal for them, that they want to do a career change at some point. I just encourage them to be honest, because I want to help them get to where they want to be with whatever resources that I have access to. So just creating a safe space for people that look like me to start out in the industry is important to me.
Latrice, and Dani, I want to comment on something, but Latrice, I saw you vehemently nodding in agreement. What are your thoughts?
The words right out of my mouth. My biggest word with that question was representation. We don't see a lot of people in our industry that look like us and that are really doing it. We see a lot of people like us that work in childcare, but not really leading the childcare industry or owning or managers in childcare, and that are really out there making an impact while making money. I didn't see anyone look like me when I started my center. And when I told people what I were doing, they were looking at me like, what? Yeah, right. Like you can't do that. Or you're going to do that? You sure? So I think having that representation, that is like the #1 DM that I get a lot on social media, is like, oh my God, you make me know that it's possible, where I doubt myself, seeing you and coming to your page and chatting with you, you let me know that it's possible. So I think Dani took the word out of my mouth. That's why I was shaking, because that was my word too. Representation in this industry, I think would really help. So we can start growing and see more people that look like us. If they see other people and know that this is possible, I can do this too, because the norm is we don't see that.
There's been so recently, I think we've all been made aware of what systemic racism is, and for me as a 45-year-old, again, white guy, that's like had this like 1 degree of separation. So seeing my son go through adulthood, one of those areas that's become a really interesting topic. And if you really kind of draw out like what systemic racism has done to really kind of limit that representation, is in the area of banking and the area of like capital finance. Dani and Latrice, both of you have had to negotiate that path of getting capital to start a business, which it's such a difficult plight as it is. Any thoughts on how you broke through those barriers? Like what were there any big moments there for you with mentorship or with guidance that helped in opening the business with the right amount of capital, or any thoughts there, Latrice?
For me, it wasn't. That's another thing. Having a good mentor in this industry or someone to help you. I didn't have that. I literally started with my savings account when I started my first center. And I worked my butt off to prove myself in this community, because I was really young. Okay. Then I think I was 26, 27. I was the only Black person owning a childcare center in the area. It was a nice size. And so I had to work really hard extra hard to prove myself that this business was a professional business, because I'm sorry, but sometimes they don't think we can run professional business. So I had to prove myself in this community that I can run this professional business. Although I was young, I was qualified, I was educated, and that, that my age and my race didn't have anything to do with it. So I worked really hard, but I had no guidance. And so I just took, again, my savings, and I just made it happen. Now, what happened after that is I worked so hard in that 5 years that I was able to prove myself in the community, and I was the center in the community. That when I was ready to purchase some land and build my own business, I went to a local bank. And again, I walked in, nobody at the table looked like me when I had to sit at that round table. I was terrified. Again, by this time I was only 32. I'm sitting at this table, everyone's looking at me, and I'm trying to propose and show them I can do this if you lend me these millions of dollars that I needed, because I have a really big center. And they believed in me after I showed them what I can do in my numbers. I had a couple people rooting for me, working at the bank. The first time they told me no, and I will never forget this guy. He said, "Don't give up. Keep trying." And he was a Black guy, because I walked in, I'm not with a table full of white men.
Right.
And he said, "Don't give up, keep trying." And I didn't. And I went back again. And the next time they gave me the money, those bankers are still my best friends. We go to lunch and everything. But I really had to prove myself. And I think I had to work a little bit harder to prove myself because of the way, I looked and who I was.
Latrice, yeah, I will add to that. So part of building my business is, again, white male. I look like everybody in the institutional banking world, right? I had to have a mentor essentially sit me down and say, when you're writing a business plan, it needs to look like this. I need you to walk into the bank knowing these numbers. This is so critical when you're shopping your deal, that you have this, and this. Again, without mentorship, even with the best of circumstances, I'm screwed, right? A woman of color going into that same situation, I think, like, I'm melting down as somebody that doesn't have, a systemic racism looming over them. And again, that mentorship is so important, guys. Like, every one of us has to make a concerted effort to provide that mentorship. Because without it, you can't go into those meetings and succeed. You don't know the framework. You don't know how rigged it is. You don't know how to play the game unless you have somebody with experience helping you with that. Audra, being an accountant, being somebody that's professionally educated and professionally built out a great portfolio of experience. Any advice there with regard to like funding and capital requirements?
So I will say, I do have the accolades, the experience, and all of that stuff. But when you see me, what do you see? You see a young Black woman or a young Black girl to some people. And so in most of the rooms that I am in and the spaces that I'm in, it's predominantly old white men. And when you think of a CPA, you think of an old white male, and most case Jewish males. So when I introduce my business, I do kind of get looked at like I have two heads. Like, who is this young Black girl saying she's a CPA? She has her own firm and all of that stuff. So I have experienced that to the point where I'm like at networking events with my shirt on at my table, and I get asked, "Where's Mr. Wilson?" I'm like, there is no Mr. Wilson. I'm Mrs. Audra Wilson Russell, and this is my company. And then even like with the banking situation, I create relationships with local bankers. And so one of those relationships, I decided to apply for a business loan. The best time to apply for a loan is when you don't really need it. So I decided, okay, let me apply for this loan, really small amount, $10,000 with a community bank. Went through all the hoops, completed the application, everything, and it was just not enough. They kept asking for more documents, even to the point where one of the banker that I had the relationship with, she came out to my office and started snapping photos of the business. And I'm like, is this normal? Do you guys normally do this? And in so many words, she told me no. And she was kind of caught in the middle because she was really rooting for me, really wanted me to get the funding, but the guys in the office were at whatever the reasons were. So needless to say, a few weeks later I got a denial letter for $10,000, and I'm like, I have more than that in my bank account right now. So I will say that's when I really got turned on to fintech, the financial technology institutions like Cabbage, PayPal, Blue
Yeah.
Vine. Applied for one of those and was approved for like a $30,000 credit limit within like a week, if even that. So I will say, um, it is important to have a relationship with those bankers, your attorney, your CPA, your mentor, and an insurance agent are like the 5 people you want on your team. And I can say that mentorship is the one thing that really has helped guide me through some of the hurdles and the obstacles of starting the business, and just lack of experience, not knowing what you what you're doing when you first get out there. You don't know anything about positioning yourself, pricing, and what services you're going to offer. So connecting and having that mentorship is very essential.
Agreed. Dani, you had mentioned earlier that your father was your partner, right?
Yes, my dad is my partner.
And now do you lean on him for the mentorship, or are you driving? Are you driving him?
Yeah, my dad, he is not in the field of childcare at all. He's never owned a business before. This is the first time that he has owned a business. With my home daycare, he supported me in that, in making sure that I had the funds to start up and just, have the first. And I was a college student at that time. I was 20 years old when I started. So
Like
he
2
gave me
years ago, right? I mean, like,
it, it was what, like 8 years ago at this point, 7 years ago. But he gave me the money that I needed to like put down first, last, and security deposit that a landlord would ask for a home. But as far as the center-based location, when I was first starting out, my dad was not my partner. It was actually a family friend who is currently a business owner. He owns a lot of different properties and types of business. So hearing you guys talk about mentorship, it made me reflect on my startup process. And honestly, I can say that he was somewhat of a mentor, like about how things should be done or could be done in business in general. Not so much the childcare space, but just, if there was ever a question about like how to do something at a bank or with finances, or just general business related questions like that, we would immediately lean on him or ask him, or he would honestly take care of it because he was my partner in the beginning. He invested 95% of the startup funds for the center until my dad was able to buy him out about a year and a half later. So in addition to him, I would say when I first started out by myself as a home daycare provider, there were just many different women in the community like that I knew of that had home daycares that I was able to meet or get to know through some of my employees, honestly. And we're able to call them for just like, you know, how do I sign up for this? Or what's the number for this person? Questions that I definitely took me months to figure out, or I never got the answer to. Eventually down the road, I would meet someone that was like, oh girl, you could have just called this person. Here's the number. So sometimes in the beginning, if this is our first time in the field, what my experience with some of my clients is that they just don't know the right words or the right thing, how to research something or what to look up in order to find the answers that they need. And they just need someone to push them in the right direction. And that's what I hope to be for other people that are just starting out, like those women were for me. Just a resource, a place where they can find different resources that they need. So yeah, my original partner in the beginning was someone that served as a mentor for me, but I have not yet had the experience of needing to go to a bank to get a loan in that traditional way.
No, there's definitely different ways to capitalize the business,
Right.
and all of it's, you know, again, back to my fundraising story. When I started to figure out, like, there were people that were willing to write big checks outside of the banking facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was like this world of hard money loans and venture capitalists, and navigating through that in itself is like understanding what you're doing. You know, I'm giving up a little bit of my equity in the business. You need so much clarity and mentorship to just work through that. Dani, it sounds like you had some great people around you, and you also mentioned something that I love to hear, and that leads to kind of my closing question before we get to this. But having access to, or making yourself available to give advice to people is the solve for almost every universal problem, right? If people just step into mentorship and realize that there's an underserved segment and we've got a problem, the brain power will fix it, you know, with the right commitment. That being said, Dani, I'll start with you. What's advice you would give to your younger self? If you could just go back and beam me up, Scotty, what would you go and tell yourself a year and a half ago when you were 18 years old? Because you look so young. No, but what would you go back and tell yourself?
To just try to have a little more patience. I think I got very discouraged in the beginning when I first opened my home daycare because I didn't immediately fill it up. I was probably like 3 months in and already regretting my decision to open one. I left a job that honestly was paying me really well to be a full-time worker at a daycare center and a college student. I was making way more than minimum wage at that time. And it took me a long time to have the courage to leave. And I felt like I immediately was regretting the decision and having really bad anxiety. Anytime there was ever any issue with a parent or an employee in the beginning, it really caused me a lot of stress and anxiety. Just because I was not used to dealing with those types of problems. And now at that time, what I thought were problems seem so trivial to me now, thinking about what we've gone through over the years. And I would just tell myself to just have patience and relax, because things will get so much, you get through all of those things that you think are huge deals. And we've gotten through them every time. And I wish that I would have been a little less hard on myself in the beginning.
I love it. I love it. There's a cadence to building something really beautiful, right? Like
Yes.
Like there's something divine out there that gives you what you can handle. Latrice, I'd love to hear what you would go back a couple of years ago and tell your 20-year-old self.
Well, I think in regards to childcare, I would tell myself two things. I would definitely tell myself to slow down and trust the process, because I think when I got started, I was so in a rush to get to know everything, get everything done, and do it all by myself, that if I would have slowed down, trust the process, hired where I wasn't the expert, I think I would have saved a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of stress, a lot of headache. But I tend to want things done and I want to see immediate results. So I would definitely tell myself to slow down. And I would also tell myself to find a mentor. It wasn't until here recently, to be really, really honest with you, that I have mentors and people that pour into me, but not in the childcare industry. And it is not until here recently, being on Clubhouse with Dani, where I've met Dani on Clubhouse and stuff, that I have said, wow, I need a mentor. All these years, I didn't realize it, but I was really feeling alone in this space, because even though I had people I can talk to, they didn't really understand what I was going through. I'm not going to talk to my staff about it. You know, I need to talk to some like-minded people that know what's going on. And now I think back that, man, if I would have had a mentor 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where would I be now? You know, how much further would I be? So now I'm looking for a mentor. So get a mentor immediately if you can.
We got to talk Clubhouse. I just got an invite last night, but I think there's no bigger accelerant to building a business than having a mentor. I'll give a shout out. Chuck Gibbs at Childcare CRM has been my mentor since 2015.
Wow.
And he's just been an angel with giving me advice and something. Yeah, I'll tell him a story about something, and he's that outside voice that'll just kind of like hit me with like right between the eyes with like, what the hell are you thinking? You need to fire that person. You know, like what? Hearing this, like you got to fire. It's so great to have that buffer in between, like, you're crazy, I can't see through the forest through the trees, and then a mentor who's been through it and can help you, and the stuff like the funding and everything. All right, Audra, I want to hear yours, Audra.
Okay, what I would tell myself is, everybody's not your customer. Be picky about who you work with. Don't reduce your prices, reduce your services. So if there's someone who can't afford a particular service, then maybe revise the service, and provide more value than you're charging in price. And then lastly, like Latrice said, outsource what's not in your area of expertise. So like trying to be my own IT, my own marketing, my own HR. I just recently started using Fiverr for different marketing things. And it's like, it's taken so much off of my plate and off of my shoulders to just outsource things that is just not in my area of expertise.
Audra, I think you bring something up that's really pertinent to my life. As you, in the early startup stages, you can do everything, right? You can do it all, and you can get by with, like, I'm not a marketer, but I could do some of this stuff. But the moment I hired Genevieve, my world just became that much better. I could focus on what I'm really good at. And Genevieve's one of the world's best at our brand, and it's just looking for those great people, and doing less but doing what you do really well is super important. So as we get to a close, we do not have enough time for this talk, Genevieve. We needed more time. Okay, and I see the question in the chat, what's fiber? So fiber is something you put in your diet, but what Audra was talking about was fiber, which is FIVR. Wait, how do you spell it? Yeah, there you go. FIV. Yeah. And I do not eat enough fiber, or fiber. So as we close this down, Audra, we had one quick question from the audience. I want to buy a childcare, or I want to buy a daycare, but I do not have any funds. What do you recommend? I think all of you have a quick answer. So really quickly, Audra, I'll start with you. Any tips there?
Well, with no funds, it's kind of hard to buy. I would say you definitely need some funds to buy And it will be a little bit difficult for any institution to lend you money without a history of some type of profit. So what I would probably recommend is, instead of jumping out there into a full-blown center, is maybe start in home where your expenses are very low. Definitely separate the business from the personal bank account if and when you do, just to kind of grow while you're in home. And then when you're ready to purchase an actual center after you've built a nest egg, I would say maybe one way to go about it.
It's great. And Dani, you said you started with a home center, right?
I did, and I also started with basically no money. Because I had an investor, so that's a different option. If there's a family friend or a family member or somebody that really has no like desire to be in childcare specifically, because that's kind of different if you're like working with a partner that has a say or cares to know what goes on in the business day to day. But if you're just looking, if there's someone that just wants a nice return on their investment, try to see if there's an opportunity there.
Latrice, any thoughts on that?
I was going to say pretty much what Audra said. Maybe try starting in your home first, because without any money, it's going to be very hard to open a center, because even if you're leasing, you're going to have first month's rent and, a deposit and staff and furniture. But if you start at home, like Dani said, the cost could be little to no money if you have a separate area. And then, like Audra said, separate that business, start making that money, and then maybe later you'll have something to present to a financial institution.
Yeah, and I have a tip here too. So I think when you're without cash, that's where innovation happens, right? Like when all you have is resourcefulness, that's when really beautiful things happen. I know there's an entrepreneur in Buffalo, where our office is. We're in a high rise now with hundreds of other companies, and there's no childcare on premise. And there's an entrepreneur there that came in and just pitched us all on, hey, if you guys will give me a little bit of money, if you'll be my working capital, I'll open a center here. I'll open a center. I'm already negotiating with the landlord. And I'm just like, first of all, every one of our employees in some way, shape, or form needs childcare. Second, what a brilliant way to go to corporate companies. Also, Dani, what you had said about opening up a home center, if you ask the right investor, be it an entrepreneur or a guy like me that has 40, 50 people working in their business, they probably realize how critical great quality early education is, and they might be willing to make the investment. So finding investors out there is one of those exercises in resourcefulness. So get out there and hustle and find that money. And then, like Audra and Dani said, start it in your home. You got a home, contact licensing, figure out how to spin it up, and call Kangaroo Time. If you're trying to open a center in your home, we'll give you free software. We'll help you. Like we'll make it happen. Because there's childcare deserts out there. We need, in order for our economy to rebound, in order for us to really thrive from an education perspective, we need all of you out there living your passion and building bodies, souls, and minds. So as we close, I wanted to thank each of you guys. I did not expect this panel to be so compelling and such great content. And I just think it's a testament to the passion that each of you has for the early education sector, for building bodies, souls, and minds, and really appreciate you guys being on. Genevieve will be reaching out to all of you, because I've already had like 3 ideas in just this webinar on other things to do. But everybody that joined, we love you. If you need anything, again, please reach out to us. Audra, Dani, Latrice, awesome job. Thank you so much for joining. Genevieve, as we close, anything else that I'm forgetting? Because I'm the master at forgetting stuff.
No, you did great.
Okay.
Everyone, this is an incredible panel. Thank you so much. Everyone will receive the recording, and we have a couple questions in here just about where to get content and some of the things that were mentioned here. So I'll make sure that we include all of that in our follow-up email.
Thank you.
Awesome. Love you guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
See you, Audra. Bye, guys.
Bye.